Hey guys, and welcome to the camera tutorial that we're going to be talking about, or the Camera Plus editing application. So as you see in the bottom right hand corner, I have Camera Plus. Now this is a camera application that you can use to take pictures with, but it also actually has the editing software built in. So if I hit this button in the bottom left hand corner, it's going to show camera roll of all the pictures I've taken in the application. I could actually go and save it out to my camera roll, but if I want to import a photo and edit, I pretty much hit this plus button at the top. It's going to open up all my albums. I'm going to go to example, and let's go pick a photo that we can actually edit in here. So let's do something different this time. Instead of a tree, let's do this house. So I can select multiple ones and import it, but for this particular tutorial, I'm just going to do the one. So there we go. It's edited, and it's imported into the camera application, and now it's giving me 4 different options that I can do with it. I can edit it, I can share it, I can save it back to my camera roll, or I can see the information on it. So if we tap on information, it's going to tell me it's taken with an iPhone 5s. It's 4.2 with a 4.2 millimeter lens at f.2.2. It's camera term, you don't have to worry about it. And it's 3.88 megabytes, meaning it is actually smaller and won't be able to upload to instant, unfortunately, because it's not 4 megabytes, which kind of sucks. So maybe we can fix that later. And then it tells me actually where it was taken in New Jersey. Okay, so now let's edit it. Here's our photo, and pretty much here are multiple, and again, multiple different editing tools that you can use, and that's just one section out of the 2 other editing sections. You have scenes, which even does more to the photo, and you have filters, which, like the Avery, it kind of does the same thing, but you don't have to buy any of them. Now these come with the application, so you have a lot of different options you can do. A lot of different styles, a lot of different effects to get that particular look you want. So pretty much we're going to go back to the lab, and basically we're going to start editing it here, and then go to scene and build it up even more. So pretty much as you saw in scene, they have this thing called clarity. It just bumped it up and made it look very HDR looking. I like the look of it, but I feel that it could be adjusted slightly more. Obviously, as you can see, the stone's popping out a lot more. If I shut it off, it's not there, boom. So you see all that detail in the glass and the stone and everything, but I feel that there could be more done to it. So I'm going to shut it off and go back to the lab, and you see here it says Clarity Pro. I'm going to hit that. So now it's going to bring up 2 different sliders, and at the bottom you see all the effects I can go to next. So pretty much down there is just a line of all different effects I can apply to the photo, which we'll see in a second. So pretty much the intensity just shows what we just saw, is just how intense we want it to look. I thought it looked a little too intense, and it looked like it was about at this point. So I'm going to probably make it about, see, that's at 100%. I'm going to make it about 65%. Now basically they didn't have this in Avery application. They just had that one filter button, the high definition, you hit it and that's it. You can't really go in and manually edit it like you can here. This one you could even bump up the color of the vibrancy of it all, but obviously we don't want to go too crazy because we want to go into saturation and bump that up. So obviously you can see a big difference, and this is not how the photo looked when I took it that day. It obviously looked a lot more colorful. It looked more like this. So let's bump that up slightly. I don't want to go crazy because I'm going to bump up the saturation, and basically vibrancy is just bumping up the vibrant part of the colors, and saturation actually brightens the colors that are there, if that makes any sense. So basically the vibrancy is making the reds and orange and browns more vibrant, but the saturation is making it more colorful. if that makes sense. And what I mean between vibrant and colorful, it's just, as you can see, it's making it have more, bringing it alive. It's bringing out the colors that are there. The saturation pretty much makes those colors pop even more, if that makes any sense. So we're going to hit the checked button, and then there, it's applied. But as I was saying in the last video, if I want to go back and edit that, I can go and hit Clarity Pro, and all my settings are still there. They're not destructive. I can make it even a little bit more vibrant if I wanted to, or even bump up the intensity even more if I wanted to. So, you know, it's not destructive even until you hit done. Or I should say until you hit done. So let's go to, we don't need to rotate it, we don't need to straighten it. Maybe we should, just slightly. So I'm just going to straighten it slightly so the bottom of the building is aligned with the grid. Looks good. Hit OK. Hit the check mark. I don't think we need to add a tint, but just to enter it, you know, just to show you what it does is you can pick a color on the color wheel and then add a tint to it. It's good if you want to just add like that type of mood to it, or you can even go and do a random type of one, but that's not what I'm going for here. Here is what I'm going for is taking or editing the photo that as I saw it that day. So we're going to skip that. Dual tone is pretty much the same thing. It's adding two different colors to the photo to make it look interesting, but I don't want to do that. You can experiment with that later. Soft focus is basically giving it like that dream look, that dream effect, that dream state. Everything's still there. You can still see it. It just has a little bit of a soft focus to it, and we don't want that right now because that's not what we're going for. Film grain obviously adds a little bit of grain to the photo, like in a film. If I really punch it up, you can definitely see the graininess of it. If I bring it down, it obviously goes away. So obviously I want to sharpen it to bring out the details. I don't want to go crazy because I just did that in the Clarity Pro. Now here's the saturation tool. I believe it's just one bar. It is. I'm going to bring up the colors. As you can see, it's really making it bright, and that's only at plus 18. If I bring it up there, see how fake it looks? That's what you don't want to do. So be careful when you play with your saturation. Try to make it look as natural as possible. You don't want to go too crazy in the colors. That looks good. Let's do 20. So now that that's done, now they have the temperature, and this is kind of like what I was saying earlier about the warmth and coolness, you know, that type of effect that was in Avery. This one actually tells you, so temperature, you know, cool and warm. So obviously it was during a sunset, so I'm going to make it slightly warm, not going to go crazy. And then the exposure. Basically the exposure is, let's say, if you can see, actually a good example is if you look at the clouds above the building, they're a little blown out. Basically the exposure kind of brings them back just a little bit. It also makes your photo, actually scratch it, forget what I just said. The exposure is when I was talking about HDR earlier, this is what it does. It takes a picture at this point. So this is your normal shot. It'll take a picture at this shot, and it will take a picture at this shot, and it will fuse it together to make it that HDR look. So basically the exposure is controlling the brightness and darkness of your photo. The highlight is what I was talking about earlier when I said scratch that brings the photo in and out of the details of the clouds. So, you know, I'm going to bring up the exposure just a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy. And then the brightness and contrast is the brightness, again, of the overall photo. Now, what's the difference between the exposure and the brightness? Well, the exposure is everything in the photo to give it that HDR look. If you're doing the bright, dark, and normal part of the photo, this is the brightness of pretty much the brightest parts of the photo. And I don't want to go crazy because I want to bring those clouds back in. Contrast is basically what we talked about in the last one, just making details pop a little bit. And from what I can see, it looks good at 0, but I also like it at -20. It's all about, you know, the eye. I don't like it like that. You know, I'm going to leave it at 0. It's fine. Highlights and shadows. Now this is what I was talking about earlier when I said scratch it. So pretty much highlight detail is where the clouds are. So if you see the clouds, I want to bring them back in and try to see if we can see them. Obviously when I drop it, they kind of get blown out, but if I bring it up, it's going to bring in the highlights of the photo. So it's kind of bringing them back. Actually, it's blowing it out, sorry. If you go the other way, it's bringing them back, but I'm losing the photo if I drop the highlights. So I'm losing, look at the building, it looks a little bit flat. So I'm going to try to just punch this up just slightly. Shadow detail, again, you want to make stuff in the shadow show, like in the tree. If you look at the tree on the left, that center part's very dark. If I bring it up, obviously you can see the more detail. But right now the tree isn't my concern. You know, this would be a good thing to use, for example, on the photo we did earlier of the shadows on the ground with the tree and the sun peering behind it. That would be a good example to use that in. But, you know, it's good to play with. They don't have it in the other application, unfortunately. So this one gives you all those options. So finally, Vignette just kind of adds that effect to it to give it that focus point look. This one I don't really need to do it that much, as you can see. You know, it adds that kind of focus onto the house and it looks, you know, creepy and all that. So you know, I don't want to add that to this particular photo. So now that that's done, I'm going to go to scene and I'm going to play around with these. Excuse me. I'm going to play around with these. So pretty much clarity is the one that we just did, and we didn't like that one. You know, we edited it manually. Auto pretty much shows what the camera is at auto. Flash, well, it shows you what it looks like with the flash effect. Portrait with food, food and food. Backlit, night, shade, sun, cloud, beach. So you just pretty much play around with them, see which one you like the most. If you don't like any of them, you don't have to put them on there. Just pretty much leave it as it was. So if I want, oops, you can go to filters and play with the filters. I want to do that. I'm going to go back to these settings, and they actually reset. That is very weird. Okay, let's just apply all these again. It looks like it saved all of them though. The sharpening, yep, that's saved. I guess the clarity one didn't save. Yeah, so it all saved. It was all there. So basically, this is how I want the photo to look. Looks good to me. I'm gonna hit done, and then it goes back into the library. If I hit edit again, like I said, all your settings are still here. You can go back, you can adjust it. It's non-destructive. But once you export your photo out, that is it. It is gone, it is in your library, and that is that. So I'm going to hit save. It's saving to the camera roll. Usually doesn't take this long. There it is. It's saved. It's gone. There you go. If I go back to my main screen and go to photos, recently added, and there it is. So, you know, here's the photo that's regular, or that's edited, and then the regular one is back here. So obviously a big difference. And this is one I've edited before originally for my own purposes. But just to show you again, let's actually move this to that folder just so I can show you the comparison. Put it in there. Go to examples. And go, there's that, and then there's that. So obviously a big difference. The colors popped out. There's more detail on the building. There are more details on the windows. The rocks are popping out. There's more color on the ground. It's an overall really nice photo. Now, what's really great about that application again is it tells you the exact size of the photo. So like I said, it was 3.2 megabytes. So if I, just to show you, if I go into instant, I believe it will tell me it's too small. And again, I'm using instant because they're very strict with their uh, uploading process. I go to recently added. Oh, it actually accepted. Okay, so never mind, scratch that. I guess, well, I guess sometimes it depends on the photo you have, but pretty much it really depends on the photo and the size. But if you want to definitely just see what the size of your photo is, it doesn't really tell you in your iPhone, unfortunately, but you can always import it to that application, hit information, and it will tell you. So hit the plus button, go to your photos, select it, hit import, hit the info button, and there you go. It's 3,264 by 2,448. It's 1.91 megabytes. I believe that's the size of the photo. Not size like how big it is, but size in terms of storage. And if it's 3,264 by 2,448, it's obviously big enough to be sold as a stock photo. So if you want, you can even trash it, and it will trash, and it does not affect your photo from your camera roll. It just pretty much imports a copy of it. That's the best example or word I can use for it. So that's pretty much it for the Camera Plus. Definitely an option to edit your photos even more, so that's another tool that's really good to use. So that's pretty much it, and I will see you guys in the next section.